Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. November 19, 1953. A CIA work retreat. A remote cabin. 12 men, scientists, researchers, and intelligence officers gathered for a long weekend of meetings and discussions. After dinner on the second night, the group's host pours drinks for everyone at the table. What he does not tell them is that he has added a powerful hallucinogenic compound to the glasses of several people at the table, without their knowledge, without their consent. One of those men is Frank Olson, a 43-year-old United States Army biochemist, a husband, a father of 3, a man who has devoted his career to government service. Over the next several hours, Olson experiences a severe psychological reaction. He becomes agitated, withdrawn, deeply paranoid. In the days that follow, he tells colleagues he wants to leave his job. He tells his wife something has happened that he cannot explain. He is taken to New York to see a CIA-approved psychiatrist. On November 28, 1953, 9 days after the retreat, Frank Olson falls from the window of room 1018A at the Statler Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. He is pronounced dead on the sidewalk 13 floors below. His family is told he suffered a mental breakdown and jumped. The CIA says nothing. The government says nothing. The file is closed. It will stay closed for 22 years. Frank Olson was not the only person this happened to. He was simply one of the few whose story eventually came out. This is MKUltra. To understand why the CIA believed it needed a mind control program, you have to go back to the early 1950s and the specific fear that was consuming American intelligence. The Korean War has produced something that no one in Washington fully understands. American prisoners of war, returning from North Korean and Chinese captivity, are making public statements that appear to endorse communism. Some are confessing to war crimes the U.S. military insists they did not commit. When these men return home and the statements are examined, many of them appear genuine, not obviously coerced, not scripted in the way traditional propaganda confessions look. The CIA's conclusion: the Soviets and the Chinese have developed techniques for controlling human behavior and belief at a level that Western science has not yet achieved. If the enemy can reprogram American soldiers, the CIA needs to understand how, and it needs to develop counter techniques, or matching techniques, before the Cold War is lost not on a battlefield but inside the human mind. In April 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles formally authorizes a new covert research program. It is given the code name MKUltra. Its stated objective: to investigate whether and how human behavior and mental function can be manipulated, controlled, or altered through chemical, biological, and psychological means. Its operational director is a man named Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist with a PhD from Caltech, a stutter, a club foot, and an absolute conviction that the work he is doing is necessary for American survival. He will run MKUltra for the next 22 years. The scale of what MKUltra becomes is difficult to absorb. At its peak, the program runs across 80 institutions, 44 colleges and universities, 15 research foundations, 12 hospitals and clinics, 3 prisons, and a number of pharmaceutical companies. Most of these institutions receive CIA funding through front organizations and have no idea where the money is actually coming from or what the ultimate purpose of the research is. Over 150 separate research projects operate under the MKUltra umbrella. They investigate hypnosis, electroconvulsive therapy, sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, psychological manipulation, and an enormous range of pharmacological substances, most prominently LSD, which the CIA obtains in bulk from the Swiss pharmaceutical company Sandoz. The CIA's interest in LSD is specifically in its potential as a tool for interrogation and behavioral control. If a subject under LSD could be made to reveal information involuntarily or could be psychologically reprogrammed while in an altered state, the applications for intelligence work are significant. The problem with testing this theory is that it requires human subjects, and human subjects who know they are being experimented on will not produce reliable results. The CIA's solution to this problem is what makes MKUltra not just an unusual research program, but a systematic program of assault on unwitting civilians. The subjects are chosen specifically for their inability to report what happens to them. Mental patients in psychiatric institutions, people whose testimony will not be believed and who have no legal recourse. Prisoners, offered sentence reductions in exchange for participation in experiments they are not fully informed about. Drug addicts, recruited through front organizations in New York and San Francisco with promises of a steady supply of their substance of dependence in exchange for participation in studies. And ordinary civilians, dosed without any knowledge or consent whatsoever. Operation Midnight Climax is the program's most extreme domestic application. Beginning in 1954, CIA operative George White sets up safe houses in San Francisco and later New York. The rooms are fitted with one-way mirrors and recording equipment. Women hired for the purpose bring men back to these locations. The men are dosed with LSD without their knowledge. CIA operatives watch through the one-way mirrors and take notes on behavioral effects. George White later writes in a letter to Sidney Gottlieb, "I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?" That letter was written by a CIA operative describing a domestic program run against American civilians. The experiments are not limited to LSD. MKUltra researchers investigate the behavioral effects of heroin, mescaline, barbiturates, and combinations of substances designed to produce specific psychological states. They study the effects of prolonged sensory deprivation, subjects held in isolation chambers for days at a time, deprived of light, sound, and human contact. They investigate electroconvulsive therapy applied at intensities beyond anything used clinically, not to treat illness, but to test whether repeated electrical shocks can alter or erase memory. At least one Canadian psychiatrist, Dr. Ewan Cameron, received CIA funding through a front organization to conduct experiments at McGill University in Montreal that attempt to erase patients' existing personalities and reprogram them from a blank psychological state. His patients, admitted to his care for ordinary psychiatric conditions, are subjected to drug-induced sleep lasting months at a time, thousands of electroconvulsive shocks, and recorded messages played on loop for weeks. Most of them never fully recover. Many do not know what was done to them for the rest of their lives. By 1973, the political environment in Washington has shifted fundamentally. The Church Committee is beginning to probe CIA domestic activities. Watergate has destroyed institutional trust in government secrecy. Richard Helms, the CIA director who has overseen MKUltra through most of its existence, is about to be replaced. Before he leaves office, Helms orders the destruction of all MKUltra files. Boxes and boxes of documents, records of every experiment, every subject, every institution, every result, are fed into shredders and burned. It is one of the most deliberate acts of evidence destruction in American government history. Helms later testifies before Congress that he ordered the destruction because the program's existence would be deeply embarrassing to the agency and harmful to many individuals. He does not specify which individuals he is more concerned about, the victims or the perpetrators. The cover-up nearly works. When the Church Committee investigates CIA activities in 1975, they find almost nothing on MKUltra. The files are gone. Without documents, witnesses can be managed. The program's existence is acknowledged in only the vaguest terms. Then, in 1977, a CIA employee conducting a routine search of agency financial records in a warehouse in Rockville, Maryland finds a box that should not be there. Inside, approximately 20,000 documents related to MKUltra. They survive because they had been misfiled under a financial records classification that was not included in Helms's destruction order. A clerical error saves the historical record of one of the most extensive government crimes against its own citizens in American history. The documents trigger a new round of Senate hearings. CIA Director Stansfield Turner appears before the Senate Intelligence Committee and formally acknowledges MKUltra's existence, scope, and methods. He testifies that the agency cannot identify the total number of people subjected to experiments without their consent because the records have been destroyed. The number of victims will never be known. As for Frank Olson, his story does not end in 1953. In 1975, when the Rockefeller Commission investigating CIA domestic activities briefly mentions an unnamed government employee who died after being unknowingly dosed with a compound, Olson's son Eric recognizes the description. He contacts the government. The family is eventually told the truth. In 1994, Eric Olson has his father's body exhumed for a second autopsy. The forensic evidence suggests Frank Olson did not simply fall from the hotel window. The injuries are more consistent with a blow to the head before the fall. A homicide investigation is opened by a Manhattan district attorney. It is never conclusively resolved. The Olson family receives a financial settlement from the U.S. government and a personal apology from President Gerald Ford and CIA Director William Colby. Neither the apology nor the settlement answers the question of what exactly happened in room 1018A on November 28, 1953. That question remains open today. Go back to that cabin at Deep Creek Lake. The drinks poured without consent. The man who goes to the window 9 days later and either jumps or is helped. MKUltra ran for 22 years. It operated across 80 institutions. It subjected an unknown number of Americans, soldiers, prisoners, patients, civilians, to experiments designed to break down and reconstruct the human mind. When discovery became possible, the agency destroyed the evidence. What survived did so by accident. The question MKUltra forces into the open is not just what the CIA did. It is what any institution will do when it operates in total secrecy, with unlimited funding, and with the absolute conviction that the end justifies the means. The answer, Declassified, is this. Subscribe, because the next file is already open.